This week, we welcome Chris Pierson, CEO at BlackCloak, to discuss protecting executives, why the home is the new battleground. In the leadership and communications section, cybersecurity in the C suite, a CISO's guide to engaging the board, the CISO's guide to AI, embracing innovation while mitigating risk, cyber insurance strategy requires CISO CFO collaboration, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly important for enterprise companies worldwide: cyber risk management. Traditionally, cyber risk has been managed manually in silos, separate from the business's core operations. The future is about getting real-time risk insights benchmarked against your industry peers through automation. And CyberSaint's CyberStrong platform is leading the charge. CyberStrong is not just another point solution. It's a revolutionary platform. It's a quantified top-down risk approach where your unique cyber risks inform C-suite decision-making to identify your top 5 cyber risks and the controls to mitigate them. Sign up for your free cyber risk analysis by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersaint. Panoptica, Cisco's cloud application security solution, provides end-to-end lifecycle protection for cloud-native application environments. It empowers organizations to safeguard their APIs, serverless functions, containers, and Kubernetes environments. Panoptica ensures comprehensive cloud security, compliance, and monitoring at scale, offering deep visibility, contextual risk assessments, and actionable remediation insights for all your cloud assets. Get more information at securityweekly.com/Panoptica. Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 341, recorded March 11th, 2024. I am your host, Matt Alderman, back from a little family trip. Thank you, Adrian, for stepping in last week for me. Joining remotely is my co-host for the show, Mr. Ben Carr. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I had to go to Ohio, family funeral. Never fun, but
Yeah.
Adrian stepped in, and I heard you guys had a good show. And then Jason's out this week. He got a little water in the basement, so just the two of us, buddy.
Yeah, we had some good articles last week, so yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSA Conference 2024 full conference pass. RSA Conference will take place May 6th to May 9th in San Francisco and on demand. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC24 and use the code 54USECWeekly. 54U is in unicorn, Sec Weekly. We hope to see you there. This segment is sponsored by BlackCloak. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/BlackCloak. Having served in various cybersecurity and privacy leadership roles over the past 20 years, Chris Pierson saw firsthand the emerging gaps forming between enterprise security teams and the needs to protect corporate executives, high-profile and high-net-worth individuals, and their families from financial fraud, cybercrime, hacking, reputational damage, privacy exposure, and identity theft. The solution? BlackCloak, the industry's first concierge cybersecurity and privacy protection platform. Prior to BlackCloak, Chris was a founding executive of Viewpost, a fintech payments company serving as their CISO and general counsel. Chris began his career as a corporate attorney for Lewis & Roca, where he established its cybersecurity practice representing companies who were hacked and fell victim to data breaches. Chris, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Hey, it's great to be here, Ben and Matt as well. Love it. Well, we get a great conversation. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun. So when I think about you start as a lawyer, which is interesting, right? Because most CISOs probably don't necessarily like talking to lawyers some days, but this is an interesting starting point for your career.
Before that, I was a programmer, right? So I started out engineering as a business associate, programming, a little bit of government stuff, and then right into the practice of law, which I mean, it's kind of the heyday. Back then it was Napster, it was Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It was how do you transform things in this physical realm into digital ones and zeros. And when it came into breaches or loss of information, cyber was right there on the front lines as we were able to capture that very early days at the law firm with some really big double-digit million breaches, and we're off into the races.
Yeah. So let's talk about bridging physical to digital. Quick story, right? Leads right into our conversation. In 2014, I was traveling with Art Coviello from RSA overseas. And we were kind of going through the Middle East. We were doing different sessions and stuff. And I remember the physical security detail, right? So we went to Istanbul in Turkey. I remember the full entourage going through the security checkpoints, etc. But when we went to Dubai, the security detail dropped off. The threat was different, right? And I was thinking about this as we was getting ready for this interview segment of those, those executive protections used to be all about the physical security, but it's transformed in the last 10 years. It's no longer just physical protection. It's now digital protection, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, look, when you are protecting someone, whether it be physical or digital, it's really about not protecting Larry or Jennifer or Susie. It's protecting, comma, CEO, comma, CFO, comma, it could even be a key person, head missile guy who does laser technology for Raytheon. It's about actually protecting that individual and, in many cases, their family. And what was physical is now, right, that digital realm. The number of attacks that have happened, right, kind of from 2012 with the LinkedIn breach. That was a targeted breach on an engineer at LinkedIn that went ahead and had master access back into a server on the LinkedIn Inside environment. Then you see with the elections in 2016, and you see it continuing with the LastPass breach. What used to be something that people were only thinking about from a physical realm, can you kidnap them? Can you do them harm? Can you go ahead and steal physical documents or laptops or other things they're carrying? It now has moved into hey, their digital life is something that really needs to be understood, protected, and more importantly, it's their personal digital life. The CISO, CSO, they already have the controls for the inside four walls of the company for the 12 hours a day there. It's what are they doing outside the castle walls and their family too, which has now become really, really increasingly more important.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think about, yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just going to say, look, it's extended, right? Like it's not just the directed at the corporate side of the house. It's the disruption that potentially occurs to that executive if they're not focused on the business, right? So I've got personal experience where I've seen in my past life where I had an executive that had an issue with some mortgage fraud stuff that happened, right? And that took him away from the company from a significant amount of time. So there was impact there. And so not just their personal life, but I think, you mentioned it's how it also extends to their inner circle as well that could potentially cause disruption in their personal life.
And the cool thing is that you don't even, I agree with Ben. The cool thing is this, you might be targeting them, but you don't even have to necessarily target them. It's like the old adage that every single stone that is thrown into a lake or a pond still causes a ripple. When it's felt or how it's felt are equations on the size of it and the scope of it, but it still gets felt. And so literally doing something where you actually cause confusion, cause reputation loss, cause just time or fear or other things to happen with regard to a family member of a key executive will take that executive and their time off the ball, off of what the company's business is, and pay attention exclusively to family, having that knock-on effect of the executive is no longer really paying all the time and attention to what they should be doing on a day-to-day basis. They're worried about their personal life.
Yeah, and it can even get worse than that. Not only just the distraction, but I've heard stories of kind of scandals that create blackmail scenarios and other things for executives that have much more ripple effect than just them being distracted and not showing up to work. I mean, it has potentially financial impact for them and maybe even reputational damage.
Yeah, the financial one is interesting. I mean, look, with the number of data breaches that are out there, The information is there and causing them some type of financial issue, financial situation, even just getting their accounts locked down. These are things that, once again, take them off of task. And the cool thing is this, even if it has nothing to do with the company, you know who the first call is, Ben. The first call is going to be into the CISO, into the CSO. It might be into the general counsel of, hey, is this a targeted attack on the internal infrastructure? And then you get outside counsel, or worse yet, you might get response firms, incident response firms coming in. There's a lot there that can happen. During COVID, what was it? All the unemployment scams that were going on. We saw those being, small business loans, unemployment documents being filed before there was identity proofing put in place at the state level. Those executives were getting caught up in it because look at the About Us leadership page, acmebank.com, About Us leadership, Susie and Jennifer and Bob and Larry, and it talks about their husband or wife or their pets and the kids' names. It's all right there for the taking, really, really for the taking. As we all know, billions went out the back door, but for those executives and those companies, they had to respond.
Yeah, it's also something like those assets that you're trying to protect, the personal assets of those executives and their family. That's also something generally as a CISO, like we don't want responsibility for, right? Like we don't actually want to have that oversight into those assets because of the problems that may cause, right? It's kind of bridging that personal and corporate life together. So how do you deal with that, Chris? How do you deal with the issues where it's a lot of potentially sensitive data or information that really the executive is probably not going to want to let anybody have necessarily insight into?
Yeah, I mean, so there are two different aspects of that. One is in terms of their personal life. There's so much already out there on executives overall, right? In terms of the number of SEC documents that they're filing, in terms of the corporate papers that they're filing, their social security number is out there, their birth date is out there. All of these things are already there. And so they have that really, really unique attack surface that is already happening. So that's first and foremost. Second, in terms of the actual executive, it's like personal health. It's like they want to make sure they have low blood pressure, they have low cholesterol, but they still want the Mayo Clinic concierge program. And so the HR department sets that up with all the executives, 20, 30, 50 executives at a company, and says, hey, here you go. You can go for your big whoop-de-doo physical once a year with them and have a concierge doctor because they're traveling so much. Matt, back to your points. But the company receives none of that information, right? None of the personal health information is received by the company. It's between the executive and the Mayo Health Clinic, in this case, in this example. And so that's how executives like it. On the digital side, the same thing reigns true. Number one, don't collect any information that you don't need. And that's really, really key. Formerly, I was a chief privacy officer for the Royal Bank of Scotland's US operations. It's really, really key and baked into BlackCloak is you can't collect that information. You can't see websites. You can't see traffic. And quite honestly, you don't need to, right? Nobody cares. We have no HR policies to enforce. What you want to do is just protect them with the minimum amount of information possible so that you decrease and mitigate the risks. You could be the concierge. You can do incident response. But once again, you're the shim between them and the company, and yet you're still achieving the mission.
Yeah. The shim. Now, this is getting worse from I think from a technology perspective, right? Like we've seen this evolution. So you said 2012, I remember it in 2014. Here we are 10, 12 years later. Then enters the scene Gen AI and generative AI capabilities and the deep fakes and the things that can now be propagated, right, as a weapon against these executives, which I think really scary, right? I mean, these deep fakes of what appears to be your CEO or your CFO asking you to do stuff, it opens up a whole other level of attack. And if you take that not only from the corporate life, but now put that into the personal life. What if I'm the son or daughter of an executive and I think I'm on a Zoom with my mom or my dad and they're telling me to go do something and it's a deep fake? Like that's a little scary.
It is. And you know what? It's only going to get worse. When you think about it, especially publicly traded companies, right? They've really, really cracked down on making sure that the voice quality of those conversations for quarterly updates is top notch. Everyone has access to it. And as a result, you have really, really high quality voice audio files on those executives, on their team members, on the key people. You also have a lot of them that are going on to the Closing Bell or the NASDAQ or the different financial shows and talking about their company. And so you have great video files and audio files as well. And so what that does is it gives an attacker a head start. You have really perfected files that are out there that are on the individual, the key executive, that enable for the deepfake IA to happen and to really create the learning model for this. You have multiple different files that are input files into that process, and it's only going to get worse. And what you also have on the flip side is an executive who is always, always busy, always running from one thing to the next, trying to get 5 minutes for a phone call, 3 minutes for a phone call. And so naturally, they're more rushed. It's a little harder to get them on video. And so this sets up a situation by which the ability for them to potentially be a scamming victim or have a family member or some other key executive, a scamming victim, is at a much higher rate. It's like they're great, aside from the, kind of high net worth actors and actresses that we protect. It's one of those great areas by which there's just so much material that is the baseline upload content that they have out there that it just makes it all that much more of an attractive target. And we've already seen that. We already saw that in terms of the one account of the $25 million that was transferred due to a, quote unquote CEO getting on. And it was, a little bit jerky, but kind of getting on and pretending to be the individual through that AI learning model.
Chris, you see the... Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, it's easy to have herky-jerky video explained, right? I'm traveling, so I don't have the best Wi-Fi connectivity, or the hotel Wi-Fi stinks, right? Like you could totally justify that too. That's the scary part.
Yeah, so Chris, I was just going to ask, do you see the extension of that getting into AI detection, right? Kind of almost analysis and interpretation to do identification or do correlation. Like one could certainly think, I've heard of stories where somebody's been, I think to Matt brought up the case, right? Where, you get a call, it's supposedly your daughter, don't hang up the phone, to try to call because, something bad will happen. But, if you had instantaneous notification of like geolocation of that person's devices, like you could translate and say, yeah, this isn't them. Like, how do you see that defensive capability emerging as we get into this really complex world?
So what's interesting is the attackers are definitely further ahead than you would think. I want to make sure we make this abundantly clear. The old low and slow methods are still working 100%. So we're not seeing a massive shift at everyone yet, right? We're not going to go ahead and have an attack that's $1,000 cost of attack to get $20,000. We're going to see the cost of the attack be $1, which is your data broker file and other stuff on the dark web, to get that $10,000. So we're still not there yet in terms of it being worth it for everyone to switch over. However, we are seeing those attacks increase. In terms of the defensive side, Ben, to your question, is a great one, is how do we see that and what do we see happening? So unfortunately, unless something is live real time, right? Because it's grabbing in the audio file and saying, hey, is this more likely to be dad or mom, or less likely to be dad or mom, based off of different algorithms? Is there geolocation that's associated with it? Is it from a known non-VoIP number? And a lot of that exists at the carrier level. So really key to this on defenses is going to be at the carrier level, trunk level. Is this actually a legitimate telephone number or not? Is it a VoIP call or not? And trying to figure that out and sieving things at that level. We're going to need the carriers to really, really participate here in earnest. Once we have the next layer down, then it's going to probably be something that is more on the device in terms of analyzing and assessing a current pattern where, it's almost like, when your iPhone, you move your head around in a circle to get the face identification to know you. Well, if you do that for the other common people that you have that are part of your family, and it can identify more likely than not whether it's you or something that's been system generated. And then finally, on the defensive, kind of the old methods really work well. That master keyword that nobody else knows, that's not the name of the dog or the stuffed animal or the, whatever, the kid's favorite movie type thing, where it's something that is really an outlandish item, an outlandish word, and that is used as hey, I got to really, really, really double check with you. Are you really in an automobile accident? Do you really need me to go ahead and get you money? What is the situation here? And that is where I think we're right now immediately going to need to be. But I think defensively, we're going to need to do a lot more. The cool thing is that cybercriminals may be further ahead as a result of Cambridge Analytica, especially on the social media side. Once that happened, all those APIs got turned off. They got turned off and more manual processes run. So we're a little behind where people get funneled to in terms of, is it a real profile or a fake profile? Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of stuff here waiting to be disrupted.
Yeah, I like the return to kind of the basic principles, Chris, right? Like I think it was Rob Joyce several years ago who's head of Tailored Access. He said, we don't use 0 days to compromise because we don't need to, right? Why burn something and use the high value when we can do something very low and slow and easy? And so I think that's a really good educational point is even, look, you don't have to be an executive, just anybody watching, like educate your family, like have that conversation, right, with your kids, talk to them and have those really simple, easy things that can kind of get you to that basic level. Cause that's realistically what 99% of your attack surface is going to be.
It's exactly correct. If you take a look at the IC3 last report that just came out last week, it's once again scams, romance scams, business email compromise, crypto scams. All of these are left brain to right brain. Shut off the logical thinking left brain, move them into fast patterns of instant reactiveness. So they're on that, right, kind of like passion, emergency. I got to move. I got to go right now. And any scam whatsoever, it relies upon that shift of left brain to right brain in terms of leaving logical thinking behind. The what was it 2 weeks ago? I think the story came out maybe 3 weeks ago about the financial columnist who went ahead and put $50,000 in a shoebox and gave it to the guys in the black car that drove by her. She's smart. She's intelligent. She knows the different scams and fraud and identity theft because she covers it. It's not about that one person. It's about overall the propensity and possibility of being victimized. And that's what she is. And we have to think about, how do we communicate to our family members as security professionals? What duty and obligation do we have to talk to mom and dad, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, and loved ones? There's a lot here that we know and a lot more that we can do to actually make sure some of this stuff sinks in.
Yeah, I think the hard part is balancing corporate life and professional life in this thinking, right? I mean, we get inundated with it at work, right? We're constantly going through awareness training, we're going through phishing simulations, right? So at work, we're kind of embedded in it and we're so used to it. But I think it's hard to keep that level of kind of keeping your spidey antennas up at home, right? Like when you go home in the evening, you're hoping that you can forget about the day, you can relax. You almost want your defenses to go down, but if you're an executive, you almost can't do that. Like you have to have that same level of heightened kind of urgency and insight at home as well, and that probably takes a toll on the executive as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a few different points there. First of all, Ben. Ben's last thing he's thinking of is after he leaves the workday is, oh my gosh, I can't wait. It's 7 p.m. tonight. I can't wait to go flash the router or go ahead and apply update patches to the Arubas and stuff. I mean, it's one of those fundamental things. We want to leave work behind. So a few things. Number one, all executives of all types, it's like the last thing I want to do is mess around hey, I need to protect myself at home, which is, quite honestly, one of the reasons why BlackCloak exists. The CISO, I mean, both myself and Ben from his many lives, it's like the last thing we want to do as a CISO is be like, yeah, we'll stop by the house. We'll take care of things. We'll get on with your husband or your wife or your spouse and significant other, and we'll help them with their computer. It's like, no, and you're not going to send team members to do it. And then the fundamental premise is that for the executives, board members, your lives are inextricably intertwined with your persona in your work life in public. If you are the CEO of Walmart, the CFO of Target, the COO of Lowe's, I don't know why I'm picking retail giants, but if you're those individuals, you're kind of on duty 24/7. When you go to church, when you go to the supermarket, when you go to the wherever, you're literally there and you're your own persona. Everyone's going to refer to you as the CEO, CFO, COO. There's no removing it. And cyber criminals know this. They know that you're always on. They know that your device
always comes. It's kind of the movie star principle, right, Chris? I mean, you think about Scarlett Johansson is always Scarlett Johansson. She's always on, no matter where she is, right? And that's kind of the same thing at an executive of a large company. They always are that person. When the normal day-to-day employee goes out, they're just Bob, right? Or Susan or whoever they are, right? Their friends know them as that. But even if your friends know you as your friend, as a C-level executive, there's still an association with your work persona and your work life. And so that just transcends kind of everything. It travels with it.
It does. And what's even cool about it is that there is no, to the best of my knowledge, there is no like newly formed compact with cyber criminals in the nation states that says, hey, you know what? When Ben goes home, or this weekend, it's a 3-day weekend, want to make sure Ben gets time to go, skeet shooting or golfing or rowing wherever with the family and stuff like that. And so let's make sure at 5 p.m. we cease our offensive activities trying to get into the company through Ben or the CEO or the CFO or whatever. It's like, no way. It's like, that doesn't, you remember the game tag when you're young? It's like you put your hand, I'm on home base, nobody can tag me, right? Type
You
of thing.
didn't see that Honor Among Thieves paper that went around that everybody signed off on? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And when you think about it, as the castle wall, sometimes me as a former CISO, and for both of you, and sometimes we're hard on it. We're like, oh man, why couldn't they have gotten that? It was a simple control or a simple this, or we should have this, or we should have that. We're actually doing a really good job on the inside of companies. A lot of good things are happening. That means that the walls are getting higher and higher and higher. The king and queen don't just stay inside the castle walls. They go for a long walk down by the river. Sometimes, I guess, they go by the good old whiskey pub. And for other times, they go to their summer cottage. Cyber criminals, nation states will attack the executives, the key players within the organization in their personal lives. And they'll also do it through the others that are in their family unit. And what we have to just do is say, okay, we're okay with that. We don't necessarily want to be there, but we still want them protected. Same thing, back to Matt, your question on physical protection or on concierge healthcare or on kidnap ransom or global air medical rescue and response. Whatever those topics are that are there as a benefit to the individual because of the comma is really where we need to be forward thinking.
So, Chris, what are some just simple things that executives need to do or think about in this environment, right? Because not everybody has your service, but there's probably some quick tips or tricks that they should all be thinking about. What are some of those?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, you got to shrink the attack surface. No matter what, everybody can make themselves, their family members, a little harder target to hit. It could be by doing some data broker stuff. It could even just be by not actually filling out the warranty card, by not actually submitting in for the free raffle, by not having the kids submit in for the free raffle, by limiting the information that you share. Next time the dentist says, hey, I need your social security number, write in a fake one or say no. They don't need it. There's no reason for it. So limit what you are sharing, limit what we call your digital exhaust. If you limit that, it makes the job of protecting you much, much easier. So everybody can do that. And it may be something so simple as, hey, grab your cell phone right now and go in and see whether your apps are on always allow, never allow, or only while using. Go through each one of the apps. All of that data is going out to the different data brokers who are aggregating it and selling it. And we see it being sold globally. Yes, tons of it comes from deep web, dark web, but we also see us contributing to the digital exhaust. And we can stop that. That's one big thing. Second big thing is this. Look, go ahead and make sure every single device inside your family and household is in some form or fashion protected, secured, updated, patched, whatever. Do it once a month. I mean, we all know that that's not good enough. But 12 times a year, set up all the devices on the table at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Click update on all of them, type in all the passwords, connect them, power cord and stuff like that. Go to the Starbucks, come on back, hit the reboot. You should be good to go, right? Let's do it at least those 12 times during the year in terms of making sure they're there. Your home, make sure, in the name possible, it's like, make sure that guest network is turned on for the Wi-Fi. And you put all the other people that you don't know what their cybersecurity is going to be on the guest network. You got little kids and stuff like that, call it the fast network and then literally tell them it's a fast network. You want to be a slow network, fast network. Put them on the fast network and keep them cordoned off in that area. And then maybe finally is talk to people. Education and training, yes. And it doesn't have to be big and bad. It could simply be hey, you know what? It's an interesting story that was on whatever, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Interesting story that was on. And it spoke about a child who was lured out of their house with strangers. They recovered her a week later. It was probably a really tough week, kids. But that's because they believed that someone was someone who they said they were over social media, and they moved off of a mainstream into a separate chat. They gave too much personal information out. These don't have to be things that are nightmare situations for kids and all age appropriate. Let's have the conversations. And the other thing that we forget there, let's have the conversation. We, cybersecurity professionals, whoever, everyone who's listening is going to be in this group. Let's make sure we're having that conversation with our brothers, our sisters, our moms, our dads, our other significant others, and so to speak, because that's on us. We know about it. We have the duty and responsibility to actually do it.
Yes. Thank you. Great tips. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's great. Enjoyed the questions, Matt and Ben. A lot of good stuff here, and I hope people think about that digital executive protection, that digital footprint that exists beyond the four walls of their companies, because it is something that, like AKA LastPass, it is something that can come back to bite you in the rear. It's something that can absolutely be mitigated as a part of a relationship, as a trusted partner, and really, quite honestly, give the CISO some peace of mind and not get them to use.
Yeah, absolutely. To learn how to protect your executives and their families, please visit securityweekly.com/BlackCloak. We're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.